And draw this graph. I drew this one ahead of time so that you could just kind of jump right in. And then I'll back it up away from the board so you can see me working through min, max, intercepts, min range, all that stuff that we've been doing these last couple classes. And this should wrap it up. We'll have a homework that'll be due at some point this weekend, before you get back to school on Monday. And what we'll do is when we get to school on Monday, when we get to class, we'll do it for real. We'll do it where it counts. We'll do it for where correctness is going to matter. And I put in grades for your quizzes too. So hopefully you saw that. In general, things went pretty well, which was awesome. But it is really hard for me to write on your work as if I was grading it, which sucks. I tried it on iPad. I tried it on my laptop. iPad is not great, and trying to type all that, it just was bad. So if you want to know what you did wrong and what you want to get better at when it comes to that chapter 0 stuff, that's just going to be something we're going to have to do separately. Outside of class time, you come in during lunch or before after school or something like that. I'm off 1st and 8th. That could work too. But if you got grades you're happy with, and you made a little mistake here or there, but you still did overall pretty well, then you get it, which is cool. But some things were just like pluses and minuses. Some people forgot that. Some people, wrote the decimal approximation rather than putting like the square root of 3 or whatever it was. But in general, grades were pretty good. In our class, period 6, the average was almost a 90%. So that was awesome. And nobody got below an 80 total, 40 out of 50. So really, really cool to see everybody do as well as they did. So that's good. So that should help kind of give you a nice, strong base on which to build a decent grade for the whole semester, because that one fell into the quiz test category, which counts for a lot more. All right, cool. So we've got an arrow here on the left. So it's going to go up and out to the left forever. And then you've got an x-intercept here at -2. You've got this bottom part right here at -1, -2. Y-intercept right there at -1. X-intercept there at 1. And then we come up to 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. So that point right there is sitting at 2, 4. And then we head back down to 3, 3. And then this last point out here is 5, 5. So make sure you have those points that I mentioned there. But I'm going to slide us back a little bit. Does anybody else need to see that for any longer? Just say so if you do. Okay, cool. All right, so I'm going to back us up because I want to try not to break my laptop. And just talk through it. I know it's a little hard to see, so I'm going to talk through it as well so that you can hear me say it rather than just see the words written down. I'm going to write in black because that should pop up as best I can. But I want to see the picture of the graph at the same time. And let's just run through what we've got. Okay, min-max, intercepts, min range, and all the stuff that we did last time, increasing, decreasing, positive and negative. Okay, and that should wrap up 1.1. We'll practice again for homework this weekend. I put one on Canvas for you, 1.1 practice. And then when we get to class on Monday, we'll do it for real. Now, it won't be worth 50 points or anything like that, but it will go into that category that's going to count for a little bit more. All right. So at any point, just unmute yourself, ask me a question, or drop it in the chat because I'm close enough to my laptop where I can see it. But you've got the graphic in front of you. I've got it here. Let's just run through this one, and then you're good. Then you guys can head out for the day. Okay. But I'm going to ask questions, and I want you to, like we're in class, like unmute yourself and speak up if you've got an answer that you think you feel confident in. Okay. So where is the minimum? Where's the lowest point on this graph?
-1, -2.
Perfect, right? That one right there, -1, -2. The x goes first. We went left 1 and then down 2. So -1, -2. Now, I drew this graph the way I did on purpose because sometimes we'll draw it like this, and so it could screw us up a little bit. Is there a maximum point? Is there a highest point on this graph?
No.
No.
right? And that arrow, even though it's like a little bit lower than that point right there, just because of the way that the graph is drawn, it's still going to go up and out forever. So if you run into an arrow, you know that you're headed up forever. So let's just say none. All right. So -1, -2, excuse me, for the minimum, and then no maximum. There is no highest point. Okay. How many x-intercepts do we have? Let's see. 1, 2. We've got 2 of them, so let's list them both. Which one should we write first? The one on the left or the one on the right?
The left.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's name this one first. What is that point right there?
-2, 0.
Good. The x value first, right? We went left 2, so that's -2, and then we didn't go up or down because it's on the x-axis, so that's why we're at 0. And then so the other one is just going to be 1, 0, because we run right through the x-axis at that spot. Okay, cool. Only one y-intercept, and that's the way it's always going to be when we're looking at functions, because we just want to have 1 point for every x value that we've got. And so what's this spot right there? I can wait for
0, -1.
Good. 0 first, right? Because we don't move left or right. We're always coming from the origin. If you have trouble kind of figuring out what numbers to put in for the points, always start counting from right there. If you start at the origin, you go left or right first because that's x, and then up or down second. We didn't go left or right, so that's why x is 0. And we went down 1, so that's where the -1 comes. All right, cool. And those are the only points that we talk about. Okay, those are just the points. All right. Everything else from here, so all of the domain and range and all the increasing, decreasing stuff, those are always going to be intervals, right? We're going to use what's called interval notation to say where a graph starts and where it ends. And this kind of breaks down the categories. Okay, domain is all of the x values, right? And we're going to go from left to right, but we're just going to say where it starts and where it ends. And we're going to use potentially a couple different types of brackets to do that, right? We've got our hard brackets for when those points exist. Points exist, call that the hard bracket. Hard brackets. And it's really about us wanting to include the endpoints. Whatever that beginning and that end is, does it make sense to count it for domain, for range, for increasing, decreasing, whatever it is? We're going to use the hard brackets when we want to include it. We'll use these soft brackets when we don't, right? Either the points don't exist because it's something like infinity, right? Because that's not actually a point. Or we just want to exclude the endpoints. I don't want to talk about the beginning first point because maybe it doesn't make sense based on what I'm talking about. Okay, so hard brackets, let's include those endpoints. Soft bracket, let's exclude them. And it could be a combination of either one. All right, so let's do it. Domain, left to right. Is there a first x value over there on the left?
It's infinity.
We got an arrow, right? And so that's pointing forever in that direction. And so we've got 2 directions when it comes to infinity, right? We've got positive numbers going this way and negative numbers going that way. So if we're going that way forever, let's call that negative infinity. And then we scan ourselves all the way to the right. What's that last x value? This point right here, let's look down at where that is on the x-axis. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Next to the negative infinity, hard bracket or soft bracket?
Soft bracket.
Say it again.
Soft bracket?
Yeah, absolutely, right? Because it's infinity. Always, always, always. Anytime you've got infinity, we're always going to use that soft bracket. It's not a point that I can go to, stand there, and be like, yep, here I am at this spot. I'm going towards infinity, just going forever. Good. Soft bracket next to that one. What about the 5? Is that a point we can go to, stand there, say, yeah, I made it? Absolutely, right? There it is. Hard bracket. And that's one of the things that I'm going to be looking for closely on Monday when we do this thing for real. Are you using those right brackets? Are you using the correct soft versus the hard brackets? Okay, cool. Domain done. That's it. Beginning, end, good to go. All right. Now at the bottom, when we look at range, that's just all the y values. And realistically, this is the only one that's going to be y values. Everything else is always just x. Increasing, decreasing, positive, negative, those are always going to be y values. This one's just the weird one that takes us from the bottom of the graph to the top. And so that's what we got to do. We got to kind of start here, scan our way up this graph, and name whatever that first point is, but I just care about the y value at that spot. So what is that first y value down there at the bottom?
-1.
-1, -2. Because you got a mark right there. I know it's tough to see, and a mark right there. So it actually starts at -2. So there's my smallest y value, well, which makes sense because there's the y value for the minimum, -2 right there. So that should match. Is there a highest point? No, right? If there's no maximum, then our range is just going to go up forever. And because we're going up, let's call that positive infinity. Hard bracket at -2, soft bracket at infinity always with infinity. Okay. All right, now you've got the graph in front of you, so I'm going to try to get it all in one spot. But I want to talk about what we looked at on Wednesday, increasing versus decreasing. Okay, and the easiest way to think about increasing is to just say we are going up from left to right. Right? If I follow this graph with my finger, with my pencil, just with my eyes, am I moving up? That's all increasing is. And we just want to name, these are always going to be the x values for all of these are all going to be x values. Right? We're basically just chopping the domain into smaller and smaller pieces where it's going up. And so I start on the left and I say, okay, if I follow this graph from the left edge and I just take this path, well, I'm going down. That's not part of my increasing. No good, no good, no good, no good. Still going down. What's that x value where we take a turn and start to head back up? Well, it's that one right there, right? Because as soon as I make this move around, now I'm going to head back up again. Okay? And that x value where that starts is at -1. And then I just follow myself along that function until I stop going up. But here I am at -1. Okay, so I haven't moved yet. I'm still at -1. Not going up yet. But the moment I take that very first step, the moment I actually move my finger, now I'm going up, going up, going up, going up, going up, going up. But then right here, I take a turn, right? And I start to head back down. So I want my increasing interval to end at that peak, that highest point right there in that relatively close section nearby. And I just want the x value where that happens. And that x value, if you got the graph in front of you, that's 2. Now, with increasing and decreasing, I'm never going to include those endpoints because when I get to the bottom of the hill and I haven't gone up yet, kind of right on the edge of your screen there, I haven't increased yet, right? Right here, I'm not going up just yet. And once I get to here, now I've stopped going up. And so I'm always going to use soft brackets around the increasing and decreasing intervals, right? These right here will always be soft brackets. Increasing and decreasing. We just can't include those endpoints. That says always soft brackets. We can't include those endpoints because I made it. Either I'm at the bottom or I'm at the top. And I need to kind of be moving to talk about increasing versus decreasing. But there's a whole nother section of this graph where I take a turn and I head back up again, right? So we're here, we took the turn, okay, well, now I'm decreasing, so I don't want to talk about that with my increasing interval. But then here, right, I hit the bottom of this little section here, and I take a turn, and I start to head back up again. And so I want this interval also. I want that space where the graph is going up again. So I have this whole other one over here that I want to include, right? So we left a little space on Wednesday, and we said, hey, let's go up from, what is that, from 3 to 5. Let's go from 3 to 5 as well. Again, not including those endpoints because I haven't gone up yet or I've made it to the top once I get to the end. I want both of them. And we talked about on Wednesday what to put between those intervals, to take an interval that I like and another interval that I like and take them both. Remember what that was? What symbol we put in between two sets to say I want their, I want them both.
Wasn't it like a U?
Yeah, nice. And do you remember what that stood for?
Union.
Union.
Union. Nice. Good memory. All right. So we'll just throw that U in between. If we have 2 sets, then I just need a U in between. If I've got 3 sets, okay, I've got this one, union, this one, union, this one. If you got 5 of them, then you just put a bunch of U's in between each one to connect them all together. Cool. And it doesn't always have to have with increasing or decreasing or positive. It doesn't have to be multiple sets that do it, but if we do, we don't want to leave any of those out. Cool. All right, increasing done. Now let's do decreasing. Okay. And I just start on the left and I say, is it doing what I want? Well, the moment I start moving, down I go. And that's really what decreasing is to just go down from left to right. But because this graph doesn't have a beginning, right, the domain started at negative infinity, then so does my decreasing interval. I can say that this graph is decreasing that whole time there on the left. Let's start it at negative infinity. All right, because we're just kind of chopping up the domain into pieces that we like. So good, going down the whole time to negative infinity because we're going from the left. Negative infinity, all right, going down, 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 down. And I'm just looking for that point where I take a turn and I start heading back up again because that's where my decreasing is going to end, right at that point right there, right? And that point, the x value at that spot is -1. But it's increasing, decreasing, so I know I've got soft brackets because once I hit that -1, I get down to the bottom of that graph, I'm done. I'm not going down anymore. I hit the bottom and I'm gonna take a turn and head back up. But we also have this little section in here too, right? All right, increasing, increasing, well, I'm talking decreasing, I don't care about that, but I hit this little peak right here and then I head back down. I want this interval here between these 2 numbers, right? And between those 2 is from 2 to 3. And so I've got a whole nother interval from 2 to 3 that I like. And that's just soft brackets, of course, because it's increasing, decreasing. And then I've got them both. Let's put the U in between them for their union. Okay, and if you guys have questions, just stop and let me know. And if you haven't dropped your name into the chat, do that so I can take attendance. That's how I'm going to check to see who's here. So just put your name in that chat so I know that you've been here. Okay, so increasing, go up from left to right. Decreasing, go down. Go down from left to right. Okay. Increasing, decreasing, done. All right, now our last little bit, and then we're out of here. Okay. Positive versus negative. Okay. Positive really just means to be above the x-axis. Okay. And so if we look at this graph, right, I drew this one out for us. I just want to name the space. Mute yourself if you're unmuted still. Name the space where this graph just exists above the x-axis. And I've got all of this at the beginning, right? And this graph started way over here at negative infinity. And this whole time, it's above the x-axis. Sure, it's going down, right, from left to right. I know I'm going down. But what I care about, now that I'm talking positive, negative, is just the space where it exists above and the space where it exists below. So I've got all these points way from negative infinity all the way over to here. But the moment I get to -2, now I'm not above the x-axis anymore. And so there might be some times like this one where we're going to use soft brackets again to talk about positive versus negative. So from negative infinity, sorry. From negative infinity, and of course, soft bracket, right, because it's infinity, all the way to that x-intercept at -2, but don't include it, okay? So if you wanted some nice kind of in general rules to follow, I think you can probably see that well enough. If you've got x-intercepts, soft brackets. When we do positive versus negative, okay? If your end point of your little section that you're looking at is an x-intercept, don't include it because we're 0 there, and that's not positive or negative. And so once I get to -2, I start to drop below the x-axis, and so that's no good for my positive. I'm just doing positive right now. But I run over here and I hit another x-intercept and then I head back up. And that's what I'm looking for. Now I want all of this section 2 where all this stuff exists. And it starts at 1. And because that's an x-intercept, I know I can't include that as part of my interval. So soft bracket right there. okay? And then I take it to the end. And I want to talk about what happens here at 5 and whether or not I should include that as part of my positive endpoint. Because really that's your chance to potentially include one of these numbers, right? If you're talking about endpoints, it could be a hard bracket. In fact, most of the time it will be, unless you're ending at an x-intercept, right? I know it's tough to see. But what I said there was endpoints. That's what this is, endpoints, okay, colon. That could be a hard bracket. And I would say about 99% of the time it's going to be a hard bracket. The only time it wouldn't be is if it was an x-intercept, because x-intercepts will always be soft brackets. But that last point there, right here, that endpoint, that's not an x-intercept. That's just sitting above the x-axis, really where I want it to be when I talk about positive versus negative. So I can end this thing at 5, but I can include that endpoint at 5 with that hard bracket because it is above the x-axis. I don't need space left and right to talk about positive versus negative. I just want to say, are you above the x-axis at that point? Okay, and then I've got 2 intervals, so of course the union between them. All right, and then last one, negative. Anything below the y-axis. And below, I'm writing over here underneath the word negative, below x-axis. And there's only one section where that happens, just between here and here. And so there's only one continuous space that I have to worry about between -2 and 1. And so when I come over here and I write down from -2 to 1, and I want to decide hard bracket versus soft bracket, if you look at these two options, there's a reason I wrote this first one first. If it's an x-intercept, soft bracket. And that's what both of these are. Okay. The only time you'd ever use a hard bracket for positive versus negative would be at an endpoint. That's just a point. That's not actually on the x-axis. Okay. And there you go. There's all 1.1 altogether. And I just wanted to give us that one chance, one more time to see that before this weekend, when I send, which I did already, on Canvas for under today's announcement, and then just sitting under assignments, is 1.1 practice. 1.1 practice, which counts as a homework. That's just a handful of graphs, some simpler ones on the front that don't have arrows and not a whole lot of ups and downs, and then a couple on the back that are a little bit more involved, one more like this one, which I really want you to feel comfortable with. So, but that one's just completion and effort. You don't have to get that one perfectly correct to get the credit on Monday, or I guess by Sunday night, right? Sunday at midnight. But I want you to get it. I want you to feel like you understand it, because when we get to class on Monday, we're going to do a couple for real. Where I'll check it and see how you actually did, give you some tips, give you a grade, because then we move on. And I have to kind of look at chapter 1 to see what I want to do next. But things are going to switch gears big time. We're not going to look necessarily at the visual side of stuff for a while. So this is your chance to get your graphs pretty well understood, so we can talk about things that look like that. No matter how crazy they are, we can kind of break them down into some important sections to talk about what works and what doesn't. Good questions? Is there anything about either the old stuff with the points and the domain and range, or even with the new stuff that we did on Wednesday, increasing, decreasing, positive, negative, that you want to get out there now so I can fix it? Just unmute yourself and give me a shout. If not, and you've written your name in the chat, you are good to go. You can head out. But I'll stick around if anybody has any questions. If anybody wants to work through that 1.1 practice, you can do that with me. I'm cool with that. Otherwise, you guys are good to go.
Hey, do you mind if I talk to you once, like, it's just me and you in the class?
Sounds good.
All right.
Hey, Rosie, could we go over the homework 1.1?
Sure.
Okay.
Let's take a look at one of them.
It was only 2 problems, right? Only 2.
Right. Homework 1.1 was just 2 problems. Yeah.
Okay, I understand everything except for because I was absent Wednesday, so the only thing I'm having trouble with is the increasing, decreasing, and then the positive and the negative. Everything else I can get.
Okay, so the thing that I find easiest to deal with the increasing, decreasing is kind of what I wrote here in quotations. If we're talking about increasing, I want to go up from left to right. I want to read this graph from left to right, and as I follow the function, I just want to go up. And for all of these, increasing, decreasing, positive, negative, these are always just intervals of x values. I don't have to worry about naming the y's like I do in the range. I just say, okay, what's the x value where it starts going up, and what's the x value where it stops going up? What's the x value where it starts going down and where it stops going down? Okay, so the thing that I think would be nice for you to have down somewhere is that the word increasing means to go up from left to right.
All right.
The word decreasing means to go down from left to right, which is nice because that's pretty intuitive. But when we talk about positive versus negative, that could be a little bit more confusing because you've got positive x's and negative x's, positive y's and negative y's. And so to make that as easy as possible, when you talk about positive, let's just look at the graph and say, where is it above the x-axis? Let's call that positive. We're like ground level, like the x-axis is ground level, that's sea level, right? Am I above or am I below? Okay, so positive being above the x-axis and negative being below the x-axis. And for each one of these four, increasing, decreasing, positive, and negative, it's just the x values where it happens. So we're taking this whole domain, whatever it is, and we're just kind of chopping it up into smaller pieces to describe where certain things are happening. Where is it going up? Where is it going down? Where is it above the x-axis? And where is it below?
Okay.
Okay. And so if you look at number one for homework 1.1, and we get ourselves to increasing, I always start at the beginning. Whatever the beginning is, I'm going to look at the left side of this graph, and I'm just going to follow it along and see what happens. So I start there at -4, right?
Yep.
-4 comma whatever, and I don't care about what the y value is. It's just the x value. So I start at -4, and as I follow that graph, as I follow that function, up I go, right? Up that hill we go. So that whole section between -4 and that top of that hill at -1, that whole space is increasing. So if I was going to describe that increasing interval where I'm going up from left to right, I would say -4, comma, -1.
Okay, that makes sense.
I'm going to use soft brackets always with increasing and decreasing, because if you're at -4 and you haven't started moving yet, you're not going up yet. So I don't want to count that endpoint because I'm not increasing yet. And same thing with that last point, right, at -1, where you hit the top of that hill. Like the moment I get to the top, I'm not going up anymore. Every step leading up to that, I was going up. But the moment I actually get to -1, now I'm not going up anymore. So I'm always going to use those soft brackets when it comes to increasing or decreasing.
Okay.
Okay. And then same thing for the decreasing there, right? You start at -1, you go all the way to 3. So -1, comma 3, but soft brackets there because you're not decreasing yet at the top of that hill. And by the time you get to the end, you've stopped going down.
Okay.
Okay. And the only thing that's different about what we did on Wednesday is that if we've got more than one space where things are happening, like number 2, like take a look at number 2 and think about decreasing. Right. I start decreasing from -4 to -2. But then I take a turn and head back up, so that would be increasing, right? So I go down, up, but then I go back down again, right? And we've got these two different sections where we're decreasing. And so that's what we've been doing here. Something that we added on Wednesday is how do I have 2 or more intervals where things are happening that I want to keep track of? How do I put them together as one answer? We use this symbol for union, and it just looks like a U that we'll put in between our sets of brackets. So for like number 2, I'm going to go down from -4 to -2, soft brackets, and from 1 to infinity, right, because it's going down forever, and I put a U in between those two to say take both. I want their union.
And that's decreasing for number 2?
Right, that would have been a decreasing, right, because we go down and then up, but then back down again.
Okay. So it'd be
You
negative,
got more than one space, yeah.
-4 to +2.
So we start at -4 on the left, right?
Yep.
And we're just counting x values, so I don't care about y. And I'm going down, 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 down until I get to the bottom of that little valley, right?
Oh.
And that little bottom, that little lowest point, that little minimum right there, obviously it's not the minimum, but kind of in the space nearby, right? It's relatively lower than all the other ones. That's at -2. So I would say that my decreasing interval starts at -4 and ends at -2. And I would put soft brackets around it.
All right.
And then I've got another one, though, from 1 to infinity. Right, where you hit the top of that hill and then you start to go back down again. Okay, so you've got those two sections there where you're going down. Cool?
Yep.
Awesome. So there you go. If you have any more questions, just hit me up this weekend, all right?
All right. Thank you for your help.
You got it, anytime.
Good one.
Hi, Hannah. Hi, Kennedy. How we doing?
Do you want to?
Whoa, bro. Take it easy. What's up?
Okay, is it okay if we're just both on one computer?
Yeah, that's fine. Just so in the chat, just drop your name.
Okay.
Just put both names this way, because that's how I'll take attendance. Just so I know who is here. I'm gonna stop this recording though for last